Welcome in, everybody, to the MHRT Podcast. I'm your host, Mundungus Creevy, alongside my co-host, Glenn Hauser, Mr. Boggins, and a 6'10". We are a fan-led Broncos-based podcast, filling you in on all things NFL news, but more importantly, Broncos news. We go live every Thursday at 7654. You know where to put them, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. Now, we are still on our quest for 1,000. If you have ever wondered how to support a growing channel, the absolute best way to do that is to subscribe, hit that thumbs up, click on the bell, comment, and share. The more interaction we get on the podcast, the more eyes they get in front of. So make sure you slap that thumbs up button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share so that you can know when we go live, anytime we post amazing content on our pages, and so that other Broncos fans out there in Broncos country know that we are here. Now, we have a very special guest again this episode. He's the owner, operator, and sole proprietor of Vetanze Therapy LLC. I added the LLC in there too. Professional. Cameron Parker himself just called him the GOAT himself. And he is a man that has seen more of Glenn Hauser than any of us have ever wanted to see. He's also a top tier fan of the Denver Broncos. He is Mario Vetanze.
Yeah.
What? Oh, it's so good to be here. Yeah, it seems a little bit disingenuous when Cam calls you a GOAT because he kind of throws that term around with everybody that he's ever met and not met. But you know what? I'm in a good mood, so I'll take it. If I get GOAT status, then yeah. And yeah, the fact that I've put my hands on Glenn in a way that none of you have, we have this special bond, you know, and it's okay to be a little bit jealous.
Electric.
Far from it.
Solid, man.
Far from it, man.
Where did the jealousy come from?
You can keep that, I swear.
Is that not the direction that you were going in?
My heart. Yeah,
I misread that. That's on me.
First things first, real quick, we want to throw out our condolences to Greg Knapp's family for his, was it today that he passed?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
A few hours ago. So
our condolences to him and his family. Really hard to go through. I don't even know what to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now we continue on with our massive amounts of Broncos news that has come out, and moving on. No, we've got, so I was talking to Glenn about it a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. So Peyton and Eli have signed up to do what now with ESPN, right?
Mm-hmm. They've signed up to do 10 games.
Right.
That coincide with the Monday night games that ESPN's doing over 3 years.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine who's actually going to watch the regular game and not watch those two guys.
They're not actually calling the games, right?
No,
they're doing their own little commentary to it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're probably going to be like skits or something more than likely. That'd be my guess, but it's going to be great nonetheless. Those guys are funny together.
Oh, it's going to be
just dipping his toes in a little bit at a time.
If they're not going to put those two on the Broncos season opener with the Giants, then life has no meaning.
Right?
That's a good point.
That's got to be like, I mean, it's the first game of the season. They know plenty about both of those teams. I don't know if Eli, I bet they both probably still have teammates that are on the team. I mean, how could you not have that be their first broadcast, like former teams that they won Super Bowls with? I mean, that's the biggest no-brainer that you could possibly have in the industry, right? Of course, they kept putting Booger McFarland on my TV, so apparently they don't get it.
In front of your TV and everybody else who has
if it was just my TV, like if I had to bite that bullet for America, I would do that because I'm a freaking patriot. But you're right, he was on every single TV set, and he's still there. How much do you have to be to get fired?
Is Miller the last teammate left from Manning
and McManus? Yeah,
and McManus.
Okay. Miller McManus. Okay. I wasn't sure if Simmons was there still or not.
No, he came right after.
Justin's rookie year was the year after the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We also got some roster news that Baron Browning is going to start on the PUP list to start the season.
He's on the pup.
Yeah.
Do we even know like the ins and outs of what's going on with that knee? Because it seems like it's been so kind of on the back about what's actually going on, because that kind of just came out of nowhere early on. Do we know any details more on that?
Yeah, I haven't heard that yet. Does that mean that he's for sure going to be out the first few weeks of the season, or is that just like kind of through training camp and they could take him off of it?
It could be, because I was going to say there's a lot of names on that PUP list that
I think it's just training camp, because there was a lot of people questioning whether or not he was going to start training camp or not. So I'm hoping it's just like a precaution.
I mean, I have really close sources that say that, you know, he's been getting his body taken care of routinely, and he's in a really good place right now, and he's just about all recovered from that freak injury that he had in rookie minicamp. And I can't reveal my sources, but I can say undoubtedly that he is in fact taking care of himself.
Yeah, that's
and he's going to be fine. So don't anybody worry. That's why I was like shy. I was like, well, I don't think he's gonna miss any games.
Yeah, I think it was just for training camp, at least from what it started out by.
So Mario, they alluded the fact that I came to visit you when I was out in Colorado, and I have to say, like, in all sincerity, you know, I had a shoulder injury. No, hang on a second. This is for real. I had a shoulder injury that was bothering me for the better part of a year. And Mario, I mean, just in the span of a half an hour, made a massive difference, to the point where I ended up only having one more PT session after I saw you. So thank you for that. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your business and what you do? I know you're referred to oftentimes as a healer, but anyone that has any ailments in the Denver area, I would recommend they run to Mario's office for sure. But
thanks, Glenn. Yeah, I'm just a snake oil guy. You know, Glenn, you come into my office, I rub snake oil on you, and I say bippity boppity boo, and you're good, man. No, I have a lot of different licenses and certifications that kind of allow me to do a lot of different stuff. So when I break it down, I just say I'm a body worker, I'm a manual therapist. I'm trying to like market myself as the Jedi of the human body. But then it's weird because on my Twitter it says Jedi Master Mario, so people just think I'm a really big Star Wars fan. So I think I gotta capitalize on that more. But yeah, basically you come into my office, I try and figure out what's wrong with you, and if I figure out what's wrong, and I fix it.
First of all, Mario's office.
You know, Glenn, that's how it goes.
Yeah, and Mario's office is ridiculous too. I mean, the memorabilia, and it's not bought memorabilia like I have. His is gifted by these players.
I had to buy it, yeah.
But I mean, these players are I mean, they're your biggest advocates. You know, Simmons just raves about the work you've done, and it's resulted, you know, with all that he's doing, including going to you, it's resulted in him becoming the highest paid safety in NFL history. So
Justin makes my job very easy. Yeah. Being as physically gifted as he is, and as intelligent as he is on the field. Yeah, I mean, I love to take credit, and I joke around with him. I'm like, yeah, man, if I could just get like 5-10% of the credit of this streak of plays that you've had in a row. And he's like, no, man, you get way more than that. I was like, well, I appreciate the sentiment, Justin, but let's be real here. It's probably closer to like 2%.
Right.
You could have
like 2% of that contract, I could retire.
Yeah. You could have death gripped that calf muscle, and then he wouldn't have been there as fast, you know, and he wouldn't have got it. So you could have, you know.
That's right, man. It's a game of inches. Yeah, I'd like to think that half of his interceptions wouldn't happen without me, because I'm that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's just a blessing, man, to be able to work on these guys. For anyone that doesn't know, my dad got into the business like 40 years ago. The first Bronco player he ever worked on was Otis Armstrong. Worked on Rick Upchurch throughout his entire career, and they were best of friends. And it all kind of stemmed from there. And he was the official chiropractor in '98 when they won their second Super Bowl, and we got to see it in person. He actually has a ring in his safe in his house that we can't seem to open, but maybe one day. But it is in there. And it just kind of grew from there. And everything that you saw at the office, Glenn, and anybody else that comes in, it was all built by him. He did the legwork, and he had the foresight to realize that, you know, he was very good at what he did, like maybe the best at what he did. But he still brought in other people that were also very good at what he did. So we're a one-stop shop office. We're not just chiropractic. We're not just massage. We're not just PT. Yeah. We're anything and everything that you could possibly want. And that was his vision. And he just did a great job of putting the right people in place. And obviously I had pretty big shoes to fill, and like that's what I'm doing every day, just doing my best to make him proud.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for your loss. The tributes that poured in after that about your dad were unbelievable. I did want to ask you in relation to him, what is your favorite Broncos story that your dad told you? Maybe some behind the scenes stuff, or like what is the funniest thing? Like for your favorite?
One of the coolest things that he used to do. So like I said, he was really good friends with Rick Upchurch. Rick would come into his office, and patients, they would know who Rick is, but they didn't know that like he and my dad had this really close personal relationship. They would spar in his office, like but like play fight. So they wouldn't like actually hit each other, but they would like wrestle and grapple and stuff like that. And I guess it got like really intense, and they would do it just to freak people out. And so they'd have like this room full of patients that are like, what's going on? Why is Rick Upchurch fighting Dr. Vetanze? And they would go at it every single time he came into the office just to freak people out. I always thought that was hysterical. And then one of a really cool thing that happened, I was in 3rd grade, and I told my teacher, and that was when the Broncos, when he was the official chiropractor. And I told my teacher, I was like, yeah, my dad works for the Broncos. He's friends with Steve Atwater. And, you're a 3rd grade teacher. You're like, you don't believe any of the crap that these kids say. He's like, Mario, now it's not good to lie. Okay. Like, maybe he's met Steve Atwater once or twice, but you shouldn't go around telling people that your dad is friends with him. And I told my dad, and he's like, oh, okay. So like a couple days later, he brought Steve into the classroom. And he was like, hey, I'm Dr. Vetanze. I'm Mario's dad. This is my friend, Steve Atwater. And Steve signed cards for everybody, like took pictures with all the kids. And I don't think my teacher said another word all day.
Talk about a flex.
Like, oh my gosh, this kid was telling the truth. Holy crap.
I've never seen someone that's so comfortable around professional athletes and just like completely manhandled NFL stars. Like I've watched his videos on YouTube and him with like Chris Harris, and you're just like, that's Chris Harris Jr. on that table, right? And your dad's just like doing his thing, talking about everything and going around, just like lifting his leg up, just like pop,
just effortless,
pop,
yeah.
Pop. You're just like it's nothing. It's just like, and Chris is just like, shut up, like he's just like laying there on the table, just like do your thing. Man, it's so cool to watch.
I wish he had done a video with Kevin Vickerson. I'm sure you guys remember him. Kevin Vickerson is probably the largest human being, just like in terms of like combination of height and weight that I've ever seen. I think he was like 6'5", 6'6", and he was easily 340 pounds. Like, I'm a pretty big guy, and his leg was the size of my torso. And my dad, like in his mid-60s, would toss him around like he was nothing. It was just second nature to him. It was something to see for sure. I remember that he was actually one of the first people I ever worked on, and that my dad was throwing me into the deep end. He's like, all right, you're going to work on Kevin Vickerson. I'm like, and do what? And he's like, make him feel better. I was like, what should I do? He's like, I don't know, but if you're not any good, you can't do this anymore. I was like, oh, okay. All right. I know we can't cuss, but I was like, oh, dang.
Yeah.
And after about 10 minutes, I am drenched in sweat. I'm like, this is absurd. There's no way anybody could work on a human being this size. But luckily, Kevin, I don't know, maybe he threw me a bone and he said I did well enough. But I had to learn how to use my body after that. I couldn't just muscle everything because I was a large human and I did not do a good job.
That's because you bought him a pizza also. You had it sitting there on the counter.
Yeah, probably a pizza, burrito, tacos, chicken parm, everything. Yeah, that dude was like a vacuum. Parm.
So I guess the big question I've got is for Glenn. Who's got more stuff in their office, you or Mario?
I'd say Mario. His is more meaningful, I would say, because it's people that he's helped, and players past and present. So it's very, very cool. So I could have spent some time just looking around in there.
We've got EJ trying to make Mario pick sides already. Not that one. That one.
Oh man.
Black versus Teddy, who wins the job?
I've touched on this a little bit. The way that I see this whole competition is I think that they want Drew Lock to win. And I don't think that they necessarily brought Teddy in to be the starter. I think they wanted a competition. I think they wanted to push Drew. I think they just wanted to raise the floor of their quarterback room. It kind of reminds me of the quarterback competition, not to compare him. And I've made this comparison, so I want to be clear. I'm not saying that these guys are like Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch. I'm saying that in terms of how the competition is, they wanted Paxton to win that job. The job was basically his. They kind of window dressed it as a competition. But Paxton was so bad that Trevor ended up winning. And so that's kind of how I see this competition. Like, if Teddy beats Drew out by a little bit, I think Drew's the starter. I think Drew would really have to lay an egg, and Teddy would have to look remarkable out there in order for him to win the job. And I think as fans, that's what we want to see. If these guys are close, you as a fan, you want Drew winning the job. Now, that's not me necessarily saying that Drew is the better quarterback or that he would win more games. I'm just saying that's how I see it playing out. And I think that this is his competition to lose. I don't think it's going to be a 50-50 split. And honestly, guys, like during minicamp, there's a reason that Drew is with the second team offense going against the first team defense. They want him to be able to rise above whatever he's got going on, because that's almost a no-win situation. I mean, there are going to be first-team offenses in this league that struggle against that defense. So if he's going against the number one defense with the second-team offense, he has to be really good. And then it was the opposite for Teddy. Obviously, Teddy was rolling with the ones, and he was picking apart the number two defense, and that's kind of what you want to see. And just that in itself tells me that they want to push Drew, and it's their way of saying, like, this is your job, but you have to earn it. Don't lose this job.
Right. Do you believe that because of the adventures that Bridgewater has had around the league and the time that he shared with Pat Shurmur when they were in Minnesota, that they gives him a leg up, an advantage over Drew Lock at this current moment for the quarterback position?
I think absolutely. Just the fact, like, Teddy's an excellent quarterback. I know he had a down year last year, and I think a lot of that was because Christian McCaffrey went down. And that's who they modeled their entire offense over. It's like, you guys remember Friday Night Lights, Boobie Miles went down and they were lost because that was their whole offense. And that's kind of how it felt like with the Carolina Panthers. So I don't think that we really saw the best of Teddy. He wasn't in the great situation. I think he's in a really good situation here if he does end up starting, if he ends up playing at all. He's in a much better situation. I would almost liken it to how he was with New Orleans. And, I would say, honest to God, I don't think that this roster is much of a drop-off from what New Orleans had. Might even – I know, man.
Everybody keeps making fun of me because I keep saying that. I'm like, dude. Look,
I think I like Teddy a lot. I liked him coming out of Louisville. I think that he could be a surgeon out there. And he's the quintessential game manager. I know people don't like that. He's not going to lose you games, but I don't think that he's going to win you games. And I think if you're looking at floor versus ceiling, his floor is much higher than Drew's right now. We have seen, kind of touches of what Drew is capable of, like kind of shades of maybe what his ceiling could be. That Panthers game last year, the Texans game, the second half of the home Chargers game, like he's shown us that he has the propensity to succeed and excel in this league. But then the problem is, like, the highs are high, but then the lows are really low, and they happen more often than the highs. So Drew's ceiling is higher than Teddy's right now, but Teddy's floor is higher. So when you come into this season, that's, I think, what they're going to base the decision off of. If these guys are kind of close, do they think that the rest of this roster is good enough to win them games where they could just put a Teddy in there and say, Teddy, throw for 1 touchdown, 250 yards, don't turn the ball over. And that's all that they're going to ask of him, or 210, 225 yards. Drew, they're going to put in there. And with all those weapons, Drew has to be throwing for around 300 yards a game. He's got to be throwing for multiple touchdowns more often than not. So if Drew starts, the expectations are going to be higher as opposed to if Teddy starts, just because of their style of play.
Now, our defense looks absolutely jacked. And what is your prediction? Do you think top 5, top 3, number 1? What are you feeling right now?
I mean, the biggest question mark is always going to be health. It's always going to be who's on the field. Losing your best defensive player in Von Miller last year, and then you lost Jarrell Casey after signing him to a deal, and everybody was so excited to see that front line, and we didn't get to see it. Chubb had a Pro Bowl year, but I think that he's capable of way more. He was eating way more double teams without Von next to him. Shelby obviously missed several games with COVID. I think we were down to like our number 10 corner towards the end of the year. Like they brought Will Parks back, who was a safety, and they had him playing in the slot. They had him playing slot corner because they are absolutely ravished by injuries. And I think they wanted to make sure that they didn't have to do something like that again. And I think they played, what was it, 2 undrafted rookies at some point were starters, not just playing, that were starting
against the Raiders.
NFL. It's just like, I don't care how good your defensive scheme is, and Fangio's is arguably the best that we will see in our lifetime, if not way up there. You cannot have a successful scheme with guys like that. It doesn't matter. Like, at some point, you got to lace up the cleats and you got to play. And I think that was a big reason why they took Surtain. But I think that this defense is the best in the NFL, assuming that they don't have any of these bizarre injuries that they had. Like Von's injury, I've never seen anything like it in my entire career. And I talked to my dad at that point. He had never seen anything like it. And his career was quite a bit longer than mine, almost 50 years. So it just goes to show, like, it was just a weird year. It's just so bizarre. Like, Duke Dawson, who was in probably the best shape I've ever seen a cornerback, tears his ACL by stepping wrong. Like, never would have seen that coming. So it's just there were all these weird things. And sorry, I digressed a little bit, but that's obviously a big question mark. But if this team can stay healthy, I don't know how you couldn't have them as the number 1 defense. I mean, this defense healthy, I think, can actually rival that 2015 defense. I think the one outlier is the linebacker position. I think Johnson and Jewell I think they're good and they're serviceable. I think they're above average. They don't quite touch like what Danny Trevathan and Brandon Marshall had in 15. But I think they're very under the radar guys who I think had to make up for a lot of losses last year from the injuries in the secondary and on that defensive line.
Bob Skinner saying Dink and Dunk. And honestly, the last 5 games of last year is pretty much what that was. I mean, Locke looked better, but they were doing Dink and Dunk. It wasn't a bomb it down the field and pray. Like, that's what was getting him in trouble. So I'm fine with Dink and Dunk as long as we don't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
And put our defense in really awkward positions and basically wearing them out.
That's the biggest thing. And if we're going to harken back to the 2015 team, and I want to do this because they won the Super Bowl on the heels of one of the greatest defenses ever, right? We all remember Peyton Manning was not himself that year. I think he threw 17 interceptions in 11, 12 games or whatever it was. He had averaged more than 1 interception per game. That defense was able to kind of rise above it. Now, if we look at this team and if the defense is as good as we think it is, as long as they're not turning the ball over in plus territory, the defense is going to win them more games than their offense wins them at this point. And we as fans should be okay with that because 5 years ago, we saw them win a Super Bowl doing that.
Because even the ranking of the go ahead.
Would you not think that would be some reason why you might want Teddy in there if he turns the ball over less?
Exactly. And that's exactly my reason. And I think that's exactly why they brought in a guy like Teddy. I think he's very safe. He kind of had an uncharacteristic year last year for him where he threw more interceptions than he has in the past. But again, I think they were playing from behind a lot. They had lost their best target. So I think that's a bit of an outlier. But yeah, I think that's the biggest reason that you maybe want a Teddy in there is because, they're like, you know what? We got a Lamborghini. Don't strip the clutch. Keep it in third, and we're going to be fine. It's just like when Bubby Brister took over for Elway in 98, and he went 6-0. Bubby was not anywhere near John Elway, but that team was so damn good. Bubby didn't have to be that good. Bubby let everybody else be good. So, yeah, that's an excellent point. I think that would be the number one thing that they would look at and think, we are a contender, and Teddy is the most risk-free option that we have.
Right.
But then the issue that you run into, if that's the route that you go down, is like maybe you think you're going to be more competitive, but then you're stifling Drew's potential growth. Not to say I'm not saying, he's going to make a Josh Allen jump because that doesn't happen very often. But then you won't know, right? And so then you cast him aside and you're like, all right, we're going through with Teddy. And if Teddy's the starter, then Drew Lock is done here.
So we got a couple questions here for you. One is from Johnny. He's the host of Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue on Sundays.
And my co-host.
He says, Mario, what do you think was the best move or moves made by Peyton in his first offseason as GM?
I think bringing Kyle Fuller in was incredible. We saw him have one of the best years that we've seen a cornerback have in this defense. He knows it like the back of his hand. And I think just watching him and Justin Simmons on the same, and I know they play different positions, but seeing those two on the same team, on the same side of the ball at the same time, I think is going to be incredible. I think one of the really underrated moves that he made was what happened with Kareem Jackson. We love Kareem Jackson. I think he's an integral part of this defense. I think he absolutely needs to be on the field because he's the perfect complement to Justin Simmons. Justin's the ball hawk that knows exactly where he needs to be and where everybody needs to be. And Kareem's just going to run around and knock the piss out of you. Excuse me. And so for them to let him walk, and it looked like, what are we going to do with safety? Because at that point, PJ Locke is on the roster and, not Trey Marshall. And I think it's nothing after that at that point. And it wasn't looking good that they were going to bring Kareem back. And then what was it, like a week or two later, and he signed for $5 million and they saved all this money. And so you get to retain this guy that I think you absolutely need. He's kind of like the emotional leader on that defense, and you save money in the process. It's incredible. And it's like, and then I want to put this into perspective that I think he's done such a great job that his move to sign Darby is kind of forgotten about. Like, doesn't Darby seem like the forgotten man? So we're looking at Darby as like he's the number 3 or number 4 corner, and he's coming from a place where he was cornerback 1. So just to put into perspective, Peyton has done a fantastic job. I was upset about Philip Lindsay, but I don't put that on Peyton. I think that was more of a result of Shurmur. I think Shurmur could not use Philip Lindsay or didn't know how to use him. Like we saw that last year. He obviously had no idea how to use Philip Lindsay, or he just chose not to. And I think what George Payton did, and Philip told me, Payton wanted him here and was wondering what the issue was with his contract. Phil told him, well, go talk to the coaches. And, Shurmur's kind of like, well, Melvin's our guy. And, we're kind of going forward with Melvin as the number 1 running back. So that was when they removed the tender, and they just wanted to do right by Philip. Like they easily could have kept that tender on him and kept him here, but they gave him a chance to go make more money. And so that was difficult for me. And I think they got a nice replacement in Boone. Obviously not quite Philip Lindsay, but you can't replace a Philip Lindsay. Everything he brings on and off the field. And so that was like my one question mark of something that he did that I didn't agree with, but it wasn't even necessarily him. It was him trying to make a move in accordance with Shurmur.
And I feel bad for Philip where he ended up. He's got a lot of competition or a lot of other hands carrying that ball.
Other running backs.
Yeah. And we don't know who the quarterback is going to be. And I will say the biggest addition by subtraction for Houston was getting Bill O'Brien out of there. I've talked to multiple players who played with Bill O'Brien, and each one of them said that he was the worst coach they ever had at any level. Pee-wee, high school, college, none as bad as Bill O'Brien. So maybe things will start shaping up for them.
Well, he was a great general manager for other teams, though.
Yeah, he did GM other. I mean, he helped out Arizona pretty good.
He's the GM of the year for Arizona. Are you kidding
I want
me?
DeAndre Hopkins for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Done.
Yeah, but going back to Lindsay though, just to kind of highlight your comment there, Mario. He didn't really help himself because of the injuries he suffered last season. Him and Melvin Gordon were supposed to be that tandem 1-2 punch, but unfortunately, he just first it was turf toe, then it was what was it, his elbow or I forget what his other injuries, and it just took him out. So Melvin Gordon became the workhorse sort of, and Royce Freeman tried to be the backup to Philip Lindsay, but obviously he's no Philip Lindsay. So while I do agree with you about cutting Philip Lindsay, that being the head scratcher, I try to tell a lot of people that this Peyton is going to make a lot of choices going forward that a lot of people are going to like, and some people are not going to like. And at the end of the day, we have to remember that it's just business; it's not personal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. And honestly, I see the strategy behind it. It hurt me personally because I'm a CU guy, and it's like, how often does CU put a dude in the pros? Maybe once a year. And how often do they put a guy that's on our team that's actually good and made the Pro Bowl? It's we might never see it again in our lifetime. So that was hard. And I will say, Philip, and I'm sure you guys remember, Philip bulked up last year. He probably added 10 pounds of muscle. And so he looked fantastic. And I think he did that because he thought it would make him more durable. And he realized it had an adverse effect. He was carrying more weight than is good for his frame. He even had said himself, he lost a little bit of explosiveness, wasn't quite the same runner that he had been. And so I think that factored into these lingering issues and injuries that he was having, is because he wasn't at a normal playing weight for him. And, luckily he's remedied that, but he's elsewhere, so it doesn't matter.
Well, and that's still kind of the same thing with Von Miller, though, too. Like, it seems like
100%.
every time he puts on weight, that's when he gets hurt.
Yeah, so when he had torn his ACL, I think it was like the 2012, 2013 season.
2013, yeah.
He was way too big, and he kind of had the same approach where, you know, he needs the bull rush, he needs to put on muscle, he needs to put on weight, he needs to get stronger, and tore his ACL. So I think you'll actually see that with a lot of players, especially kind of usually happens earlier in their career. The veterans typically know what weight they need to be at, what weight they feel comfortable at, and the most explosive. But you'll see guys kind of fluctuate in weight, and that's where a lot of these weird injuries will come from. It's like, man, he's in fantastic shape. It's like with Vaughn last year, like he's in fantastic shape. How did something like this happen? Vaughn might have been too muscle bound last year and lost some of his flexibility. That makes him Von Miller. It's like the way that he is able to bend the edge and what he's able to do with his body and how he can contort. That's what makes him so great. So when he gets all rocked up and muscle bound, it's like, yeah, man, it looks great on social media, but he's taken away from what makes him Von Miller.
Right.
Yeah. So we got a couple names in here I haven't seen before. Bree 0322 Mario.
Hi, Bree.
Bree.
And
careful. Bree will take your soul, and she'll get you banished from Twitter if you're not careful. So
she follows that up with "still hurts my feelings." I'm guessing about Lindsay.
Yeah, I'm sure she's not the only one either.
Okay, Bree. We'll get through this together.
Jan Fitz. Denver's going to surprise a lot of people. I think so too. I don't know if they're
agreed
like Super Bowl level, but I definitely think playoffs is within reach.
You know what the weird thing is, Mario, to be honest with you? All of these analysts and people that are making all of these pre-early assumptions about Denver's record, a lot of them associate us being tied with the Raiders. So if we go 7-10, the Raiders are going 7-10, but we'll be in third place. Or if the Broncos do good and go 12 and whatever, then the Raiders. I just don't get why a lot of people think that we're going to do our winning record. We're going to win as many games and lose as many games as the Raiders, but still be in the bottom of the division and not be in contention at least for second place against the Chargers.
I don't see how the Raiders aren't the worst team in this division. They've done absolutely nothing, in my view, to improve their team. Their offensive line was one of their strengths. Now it's one of their weaknesses. We already know that Derek Carr is not, a true contender. It's like, he'll be solid enough to win you games, but he's not going to do anything spectacular. The other strong point that they had was Josh Jacobs, and they went out and gave a bunch of money to like 3 other running backs. So it's like, you have Josh Jacobs. I don't think you need to be spending all this money. And then they drafted like 18 safeties in the draft. It's like, I know that you play in the same division with the Chiefs, but get a corner. You can only have 2, maybe 3 safeties on the field at once. So barring something crazy, I don't think the Raiders win more than 4 or 5 games. I think on paper, and I'm trying to set my bias aside, on paper, this Broncos team is stacked. And obviously, we all know the biggest question mark is quarterback. There's a question mark at right tackle, and we're going to see how that pans out. But, man, when you start to go beyond those positions, you really got to nitpick if you're trying to find a weakness in this team. Some people say Lloyd Cushenberry, but center's an incredibly difficult position to play as a rookie. Yeah. I thought that he played very well. I don't want to hear this PFF crap that he was the lowest rated. They don't actually know what they're looking at. And if Cushenberry didn't actually invest money, then they're not going to give him a good grade. That's just how PFF works. But if he is, causing them issue, that's exactly why they drafted a guy like Quinn Miners. I know, Cushenberry should have been better. He got pushed back into the pocket a number of times. So either he's going to take that step or Quinn Miners is going to win that job. Outside of those positions, guys, this team is stacked. And you want to compare it to the Raiders, our number 4 wide receiver is as good or better than the Raiders' number 1 receiver. Plain and simple. We have way more firepower on this offense, regardless of who plays quarterback, than the Raiders could even dream of. So I don't think any sort of comparison is fair if we're just looking at it on paper. Now, again, you still got to play the game. You still got to get these guys healthy on the field. They still have to perform the way that they're capable of. But on paper, this is a top 5 roster with the exception of quarterback.
Yeah, it seems like no matter what happens in the AFC West, the Chargers are always the worst. No matter what, they could do everything in their power.
Good. They'll have a really good team, and everyone will predict that they're going to unseat the Chiefs and they'll win the division, and then they'll choke. That happens every single year. They never play as well as they should, and so that's the one thing when I say we're good on paper. The Chargers are usually really good on paper, but they can't win.
Well, plus they only have like 2 people show up to their games. So, I mean, I don't even think the COVID stuff mattered to them. Nobody's ever there.
They have 2 Charger fans show up. There are way more Bronco fans that show up to those games.
Well, I'm guessing there's probably a lot of people outside. Like, I'm ready to go to the game. Like, this is a Charger game, right? Oh, it's not the Rams? Oh, sorry.
We'll be back next Sunday.
So Mario, what move do you think that hasn't happened yet? What do you feel in your bones is gonna come down the pike before the season starts or right after the season begins?
I would think that they're going to try and move Royce Freeman. And I get that feeling just because every time Fangio talks about the running backs, he seems to forget that Royce Freeman is on this roster.
Never mentions him. Peyton doesn't either.
It's weird. So I don't know if he's just like the odd man out. I could honestly see Royce, speaking of the Rams, I could see him going to LA.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would be really good in LA. We know he's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. He can fall forward for a few yards. He's a good, sturdy, strong runner. One cut back, and it seems to fit what the Rams are trying to do. So I wouldn't be surprised if they traded Royce. And I kind of see Royce as I saw Deshaun Hamilton. I thought Deshaun was an excellent talent. I think he just needed to change his scenery. I think he needed to go somewhere else to succeed. And he had that unfortunate injury, so we won't really know. But the Niners were interested in him, and I think the Rams could be interested in Royce. And I think similarly, Royce needs a change of scenery. I think if he goes somewhere else, gets a fresh start, maybe goes to a team where they acknowledge his existence in press conferences, might bode a little better for him. So I would think they would move Royce. It's a crowded backfield as it is. I wouldn't be surprised if they signed a tight end at some point. Obviously we got Noah Fant, who I think is a top 5 tight end. I think he's going to break out in a big way. Albert Okwuegbunam, I think, is an absolute superstar. And I think a lot of his success will hinder on Drew Lock. I think they chose Albert for Drew Lock. So if Drew is the quarterback, and then I think that raises his ceiling. But outside of those 2 guys, it's a little bit of a drop off. They released Nick Van Nett. Jake Budd couldn't seem to be healthy, and he's gone. So who fills kind of like that third tight end role? It could be Beck, even though he's kind of like a tight end fullback hybrid. So I would think that they would go get a tight end. I would think maybe bring in another middle linebacker just for competition. I would be surprised if they didn't at least call Quan Alexander and kind of get a sense or bring him in for a workout and see kind of what they're working with. But then aside from that, there's not too much more to be done. I mean, maybe you kick the tires on a Justin Houston and he only plays on passing downs. You put him in on 2nd and 3rd and long next to Vaughn, and maybe you get Chubb out there too. And you're like, just go get the quarterback. So I guess just, a couple of things to keep an eye on, but they're so unbelievably deep at corner. They're unbelievably deep at safety now. Defensive line even looks nice and deep. Maybe you bring Jarrell Casey back if he's willing to sign a team-friendly deal. Just give him another opportunity. Those are some of the things that maybe possibly we'll see, but I surely wouldn't put any stake into it. But, if I'm George Payton, I'm at least making those calls. I'm kicking the tires, bringing these guys in for workouts and, seeing what's up.
Is Casey still local? Do you know?
I have no idea. I know that he had bought a house here last year. I would assume so, but I couldn't tell you.
Rich has got a good question. He's saying, given your expertise, how worried should we be with all the soft tissue injuries in 2020, especially with the DBs, like the KJ Hamler string problem?
Yeah, man, that's an excellent question. What we noticed a lot last year is there were weird soft tissue injuries. If you guys think back to training camp last year, aside from Vaughn, there were no serious injuries. There was nothing crazy. But it was just random dudes would be out for multiple days at a time with these weird soft tissue injuries. I do think COVID had a lot to do with that. I think you got a sense of the guys that knew how to work out, how to take care of their bodies in a COVID world, in a quarantine world. Tim Patrick was one of the dudes that I talked to and asked him how he's staying in shape, how he's able to train with everything closed. And he's like, I just know, I can go to a field and I can get work in, and that's all I need. So there are some guys that know what they need to do. And I think now that everything's back open and we're not having to deal with that and we're not going to have a shortened training camp, I think we're going to see big differences. One of the issues that I took with Fangio last year is the practices were too much. And I think because we had that shortened training camp and because there were no preseason games, that he tried to squeeze in a full-on training camp into that limited amount of time. And I think guys got burnt out, which I think if you look at the way that they have started under Fangio in September, it's pretty obvious that they are gassed by the time the season starts. And you have these little soft tissue injuries. So if they put more faith into Lauren Landau and they listen to him and they let him do what he does, I think that we see a lot fewer of these injuries. And if Vic spreads things out a little bit, doesn't get so intense, like he's an old school guy, man. This is his approach. This is how he operates. But he's got to get with the times. Like he said, it's callous. He would use the term callous, like, oh, your body needs to be callous. Let me tell you, as a professional, that's not how our body works. If you keep hitting your body over and over and over again, it's not going to callous. It's going to break. And then it's my job to try and build it back up again. And I don't want that much work for myself. Like, Vic, I just want things to be easy, man. Okay? It's not bend them until they break. Like, yeah, they could be callous, but just cool it, man. Just take it easy. Just a little bit. Just take a foot off the gas a little bit. That's all. But I think that's how you avoid stuff like that.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to pick your brain a little, Mario. I think the worst injury I've seen on the field in terms of spinal injuries was what happened to Ryan Shazier, which was a moment that pretty much froze everybody, whether they were at the stadium or at home watching it. And, thankfully he was able to recover. So what's the worst injury that you've ever seen in terms of something like what happened to Ryan?
You mean like in person?
Yeah, in person that you've had to try to treat.
I was, in terms of treating, man, I was going to say I was at the game when Ed McCaffrey against the Giants, that season opener in 2001 or 2.
Yeah, September 10th, 2001.
Yeah.
That's right. When he broke his leg and it was a compound fracture and his leg was kind of hanging there. Honestly, in terms of serious injuries, I mean, I've been lucky enough to, the guys that come in to see me, knock on wood, haven't had any of these like really debilitating injuries or out for the year injuries. We've obviously dealt with guys like, ACLs, torn Achilles. Back when Demarius was in between his rookie and sophomore year, I think that's when he ruptured his Achilles. And, I wasn't a professional, but like I was with my dad and like he had me kind of do some soft tissue work for Demarius at the time. And so that was probably the worst one that I saw. And a lot of it was because they didn't do a good job with the surgery. It was really sloppy and it gotten infected. But yeah, man, aside from that, like I said, knock on wood, I haven't had any of those kind of injuries happen with any of my guys. If you ask Garrett Bowles, he had a really debilitating arm injury last year. He kept telling me, he's like, yeah, bro, if I was an MLB pitcher, I would need Tommy John surgery. Like, that's how messed up my elbow is. I'm like, well, Garrett, you don't throw a baseball 95 miles an hour, so you probably don't need to worry about that.
So you mentioned Demarius, and with him retiring, what is your favorite personal memory of Demarius Thomas?
Man, on the field, it's obviously his walk-off winner against Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And I think my favorite statistic from that whole play was that it took the officials longer to explain the new overtime rules than overtime actually lasted, which was so fantastic. But my favorite DT memory, when I was a senior in college and he was a rookie, DT actually lived with us for a couple weeks. So back in the original collective bargaining agreement, what they would do when a guy was drafted is they would pay for them to be in the hotel. And then if they were a holdout, they would no longer pay for them. And he came from nothing. He had no money and he had nowhere to go. And he happened to be in the office. And he was in there at the same time as Rod Smith, who was good friends with my dad. And my dad was like, well, just come live with us. And Rod was like, yo, man, just take that. No distractions. That's perfect. And so he did. And so I remember I went home that day and I told my mom, I was like, hey, you know that guy the Broncos drafted? She's like, Tim Tebow? I was like, no, the other guy. It was like Demarius Thomas. And she's like, what about him? I was like, he's going to be living with us for a couple weeks. And she thought I was joking. And I was like, no, I'm serious. Dad invited him to stay at the house. And she's like, Mario, I don't have time for this. And it's like, I'm the boy who cried wolf. Like, I've messed with my poor mother so many times. Like, I don't blame her for not believing me. 30 minutes later, our doorbell rings and there's Demarius with his suitcases. He goes, hello, ma'am, I'm Demarius. And she turns around and she's like, oh, I'll be damned. So he lived with us. So while he was living with us, I was going to CU Boulder at the time. It was before my senior year. And one of my buddies was having a party, and they, of course, had this party house. And he's like, "Hey, are you coming up tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, Demaryius Thomas might be coming." He's like, "Okay, Mario." I was like, "No, for real."
Okay.
And so I remember we were out at dinner, and I asked him, I was like, "Do you want to go to a party?" He hadn't signed his deal yet. And he's like, "Yeah, sure." I was like, "Do you want me to be the DD so you can cut loose a little bit?" And he goes, "No, I don't really drink." I was like, "Okay." So Demaryius was our designated driver. We went up there, and the place was popping. So apparently they had gotten the word out that Demaryius Thomas was going to be there. And one of the guys came up to me. He's like, "Yeah, so 12 people RSVP'd, and there are 80 people here." And the first thing that happened when DT walks into the house, one of our friends that we affectionately knew as Drunk Mitch saw him, was already drunk, and he goes, "Oh my God, it's Dexter Fowler." Now, in all fairness to Mitch, he was wearing a Rockies hat, so maybe just like his brain put two and two together. But that was my favorite DT memory, hanging out with him. We ran the table in beer pong. And the best part was, like, since he wasn't drinking, I would find someone else and be like, "Hey, would you like to drink Demaryius's cups for him?" And everybody's on like, yes, Mr. Thomas, of course I would love to drink your beer for you. So we did that. And then something that DT would do when someone would go take a shot and they would have a chaser, he would just go around to random people. They, hadn't introduced himself, and they would take the shot, and he would go take a chaser, and he would grab their arm and stop them from taking the chaser for like 10 seconds. And they kind of be there like, "Why are you doing this to me? I don't even know you." So that was probably my best DT, best DT memory, man. He was is the coolest guy. He's awesome.
He's great, I bet.
So what did you say to him? Did you reach out to him that day or did you know in advance what was happening?
Yeah, so he was really close with my whole family. Like, he spent a couple Christmases with us. He was my blindside brother, is what we called him. He was our blindside guy.
Nice.
So he had reached out. He was close to my sister, her husband, and my nieces as well. And so he had texted all of us, and it said, I think it was like a week before it was announced that he was going to be retiring and that the team was going to honor him in the Jets game. So it was cool. Like, he just let us know. He's like, "Yeah, I would love for you guys to be there." So we had like a little bit of an insight, but he didn't want us to tell anybody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I just want to point out that, like, whatever ghost or poltergeist was bugging me like 2 weeks ago, straight into Boggins' bathroom.
Yeah.
Because he's been in and out all episode.
That's fair.
Hey, we've been having computer and AV issues the last couple of weeks, man. It's going around.
I'm on my third apple.
Those
Johnny
Russian
Baki,
hackers.
hey Doc, who has been your all-time favorite player to treat? And no, Glenn, you don't count.
You do not
Don't-
count.
Damn, I
Do
was
not
going to say
count.
Glenn.
Glenn's a player.
My all-time favorite person. I'm gonna give a couple of names. I love Rod Smith, one of the freaking funniest guys that I've ever met. He's so cool. Rod is definitely up there. Obviously, I have a special place in my heart for Justin Simmons. I love Garrett Bowles. He's my little brother. I rode with him in the downtime, so I definitely worked my way into his inner circle. I have stories about Garrett that would shock and awe people, but that could be a different podcast for a different day.
Is he really a little brother, though? I mean,
He's so we say I'm his little big brother, and he's my big little brother. I love Shelby Harris. Shelby Harris might be one of the funniest people that I've ever met. And of course, love Phil Lindsay, but that's just because I'm a CU guy. And it's funny because all these guys that I work on, like, I've never been starstruck by anybody because I've been around it since I was a little kid. Like, I gave all my hand-me-down toys to Neil Smith and his little son because he lived 2 houses down from us. Like, I was over at Neil Smith's house hanging out all the time. So the only time I was actually starstruck is when Phil Lindsay walked into the office. And not that he's even the biggest star, but I was like, oh, man, Phil's here. He's a CU legend. Man, I got to pull out all the stops. I got to make sure that he keeps coming back. And thankfully he did. And then Bobby Lashley. I know he's not football, but WWE guy.
Bobby Lashley.
And
Holy smokes.
I love Lashley mostly because he's difficult to work on, so he's always a challenge because he's got muscles on his muscles on top of those muscles. Like this dude's got like neck muscles. Like I'm an anatomy guy. I don't even know what muscle that is, and it's just like this big. And it's like the character that he plays on WWE. You know, he's a heel, and he's like, you know, he's just like this intimidating monster of a guy. Nicest dude ever. Super soft spoken. Like kind of uncomfortable, like he's taken classes to like overcome like anxiety and talking. So it's just crazy to see like how he is on TV. And I don't know if you guys are WWE guys.
I am.
He was like basically having an affair a couple of years ago for a storyline.
Yeah.
And when they did that reveal, and I texted him, I was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" He goes, "I'm so uncomfortable, but Vince is making me do this."
So uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that was the best part. Like that whole storyline where he's cheating on another man, like cheating with another man's wife and all of this.
Yeah, with
and
Lana.
He's like this total scumbag. And he's the polar opposite in person. Like he was so uncomfortable by those by that storyline. It was hilarious.
I want to ask you about Garrett because I mean we've all been so hard on the guy. I mean, entire Broncos
Speak for
country.
yourself, Glenn. I always believed in him.
Yeah,
I was talking about
Me
these.
too. Me too.
You know what? But
Always believed.
I was on that train.
and
Not gonna lie.
I don't think I've ever seen a player so resilient, and he could have resented the fans, and he's taken the exact opposite approach. He owned up to his struggles. He worked his rear end off, and he seems like an extremely generous guy. I mean, having Patrick at his home, living there with his family, and then Lindsay Bebo was on the other night, and she was talking about how Garrett and Calvin Anderson were working out regularly at her gym in California
last year as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, here's a person that really could have just folded up, just, you know what, screw everybody. I made this happen. And he's turned into this, I mean, the best left tackle in the NFL. It's a true testament to this guy.
I like what the Mile High
Prophet.
I've seen his commandments.
You gotta give love to the big guys.
Yeah.
Honor thy
man,
blockers, for they're the key to yardage.
How could you not love Garrett Bowles and what he's been through? And I think so much of the progress that he's made is obviously having someone like me in his life. Like I'm just in such an integral part. No, I'm just playing.
Pretty much.
You know,
we're all leaning in. Tell me more. Yeah.
You're like, what did you do? Nothing. You know, he's a guy that played. He's a guy that played 1 year of Division I football, and it was not a good conference, right? Like the Pac-12. It's not like there are a lot of great pass rushers, and he physically dominated everybody. And the thing that they did was they basically taught him how to hold and how to get away with it. And when you're a left tackle in the Pac-12, it's relatively easy to do. It's quite different when you're in the NFL and you're routinely facing the best pass rushers in the league. So I think a lot of it was he had these mental blocks because he has a learning disability that he's been, you know, very, very open about. He's you know, I think he has a foundation or he's raised money for it in the past. But he's been very outspoken about that, and because he wants it to be normalized, because there are plenty of kids who like think they're outcasts, who think they're weird because they have like a learning disability, because you can't actually see it. You know, you think that someone's just different, but it's because they actually have this disability that they're living with. So that was something that Garrett had to overcome, and I think a lot of it was, you know, having a guy like Mike Munchak obviously helps, but somebody like Garrett, man, you need continuity. He's blocked for, I want to say 8 or 9 different quarterbacks in his short career. I think he had early on, he had something like 4 or 5 different left guards, multiple offensive coordinators, multiple different coaches, multiple different offensive line coaches. There's been absolutely no continuity for a guy who strives and thrives on continuity. And so when he finally got that, and he had a guy like Mike Munchak who was able to see his physical ability, was able to see that nastiness, like everything that the team saw that made them want to take him in the first round out of Utah. They knew that he was raw. So they needed to bring somebody in that could harness this power that was Garrett Bowles and get him on the right track. So it's almost like I don't want to patronize him, but you have to like take him by the hand and show him exactly what he needs to do. So because of this learning disability, he doesn't learn the same way as other people. And I think that was the issue with his past offensive line coaches, is they would just get frustrated. He'd be like, why don't you get it? Just get it. Just do this. But he learns differently and he processes differently. So he finally got tapped in. You know, having Dalton Reisner as a left guard, I think, was imperative to his success, and I think he'll tell you the same. Mike Munchak, obviously, Cooper, who I think is the other offensive line coach, and I think that's when we started to see the wheels kind of turning, and it finally clicked for him. And this was his expectation. Like, even back to his rookie year and his second year when he had those struggles, he and I would talk all the time, and he would say, I'm going to be the best left tackle in the league. I already know that I am. You know, at the time I'm like, let's shoot for top 10. Let's shoot for top 15. Like, let's not hold anybody this week. Like, let's just take baby steps. You know, but he needs that positive reinforcement. So I'd be like, yeah, man, like, you just keep grinding, keep growing, like, never be satisfied with where you're at. And that's what he did, man. He outworked everybody. And I want to bring something up. One of the things that I had heard about him last year, which was so absurd, when everybody wanted us to draft a left tackle in the first round, they wanted to replace Garrett. They just wanted him to cast him aside, get rid of him, don't care, bye-bye, see you later, don't let the door hit you. And but I saw these reports that Garrett cared more about video games than he did about watching film. I've known Garrett since he was a rookie, his entire time in the NFL. I've met his family. I'm at his house 4 or 5 days a week during the season. I have never once in my life seen that man play video games. So wherever that report came from, that was Paxton Lynch. Like, I'm sorry to say, I like Paxton as well. But you could ask anybody, any of the players, any of the people that played with Paxton, they knew it. He didn't care. Garrett cared. And that was the hardest thing for him is, obviously the fans were hard on him. And, maybe it was deserved. Some of it, probably not all of it. But what they didn't see is, he's putting the work in. He outworked every single person. He watches more film than anyone. The majority of our sessions, he's watching film and he's going over, what they practiced that day or what he's seeing from the previous game. And he's going play by play. And he does it so much that I also have to work on his son Kingston because, he sees daddy gets worked on. So he has to be first. And he gets his little leapfrog iPad up there. And then he's watching it because that's what he sees his dad does. So now that's indoctrinated to him. That's how often Garrett is watching film. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And he's gotten to the point where he is because of his hard work. And it was 100% him and his mental toughness and his ability. Man, could y'all imagine going onto Twitter and seeing half of the stuff people saying about you that they said about him, and you got to show up every week. And then not only that, it makes you better and better. Not necessarily that made you better, but you get better and better despite all of that.
Amazing.
He's like, you did and he would tell me all these people now are my biggest fans. He goes, I didn't have any fans a couple years ago. I don't know where they were. He's like, I could have used a couple of fans a couple of years ago.
Show them.
Yeah.
So let's go from left tackle to right tackle because I was under the assumption that it was basically Bobby Massey's job to lose. But are we going to go into a training camp battle of Massey, Fleming, and Anderson? Or is this Massey's job to lose still?
I actually think that it's Calvin Anderson's job to lose based on what I've heard.
Nice.
They love Calvin. Now he's more well-versed in left than right. The two games that we saw him play in Carolina at left, and he was obviously much more comfortable there. That's his natural side. I think it was, Atlanta or Vegas last year that he started at right tackle. Little bit less comfortable. And this is the funny thing, man. I think Madden has warped people's perceptions of what the offensive line entails. Because in Madden, you could just pick anybody and just put them in any position.
Pretty much.
This is if you're a right-hander, you have to learn how to throw left-handed or bat left-handed or shoot a free throw left-handed. It's not just you just flip over to the other side. If you've taken thousands of reps in one direction, your brain has to process everything the opposite of what it already does. Yeah. And so now that Calvin is aware that the left tackle job is Garrett's, so now he's getting reps at right tackle. So from what I've heard on certain inner circles is that they're telling Calvin this is his job to lose. He's going to be the incumbent. Now, that was about a month or two ago, and obviously things change every day. But the last that I heard of it, they love Calvin. They want to go with the young dude who is athletic beyond belief, and I think they're willing to put up with some growing pains because they know what they can get out of him. And, Massey will kind of be the have the DeMar Dotson role is what it sounds like. If Calvin struggles or if he gets hurt or something happens, then Massey's going to go in there. But, we'll see. But as of now, from what I'm hearing, it's Calvin's job.
Calvin's job.
Awesome.
Okay.
I think I have the biggest question of the night, though. Have you gotten, or are you excited to touch the belly?
I have not gotten to touch the belly yet.
Okay.
But I'm all about speaking things into existence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy one of his shirts, okay? Because I'm going to anticipate him coming in. Now, the only thing that I'm worried about, like something that I've noticed in my time of doing what I do, these good old boys, like these country boys, these big old offensive linemen that are like him, like a Dalton Reisner, like McGovern was, like Paradis was, like Andy Janovich was. They don't get work done. Yeah. They just don't do it. So he might be one of these guys that's just like, oh yeah, I rolled my ankle, so I'm gonna go crush a 6-pack and then just ice it. And that is legit what Andy Janovich did.
But the one time that he does.
Yeah, exactly. But if he does, and you know what, I might just go for broke. I might walk right up to him and lift his shirt and just
tapping it.
I might just go for broke. He might just turn and walk his ass right out of the office. I don't care. I'm going for it because then I could say, like, you know what, I did it. I did it, and hopefully he would laugh. Hopefully he wouldn't hit me.
Or you one up him and you Zeke it on him and you lift it up. And when he walks in, you have his shirt, but you.
I feel like in order to do that, I would either need to like have a belly comparable to his, which I don't, or I would need much better abs than I do. So let me get back to the gym. And I'm just gonna start doing like 1,000 crunches a day, and I'm gonna starve myself. Like it was the episode of Always Sunny when Mac wasn't eating anything for like a week, so we had like a more defined jawline for when he met Chase Utley. That'll be me. Like I'm just gonna I'm gonna put like the stuff that like dehydrates your stomach to make the muscles pop out. Shoot, man, maybe I'll just get like a marker and then just
spray
draw
paint.
on.
They got those like shirts. They got those shirts you can put on that has like the built-in abs and everything.
Yeah,
you can do that. Or you could get them airbrushed. So I just get him airbrush.
There you go.
Airbrush me some abs. Like, we'll make it work. But yes, regardless, I'm touching the belly. As so speak that into existence.
That's awesome. So Mario, I'm really interested in your schedule come the season. So is it a combination of office visits, house calls with the players? Do you travel on the road? I know you don't travel with the team, but do you do it on your own? What is your schedule like?
Man, it's going to be a little bit of everything. It's going to be very hectic. My wife decided, she was finally going to get pregnant and that our baby was going to be due between the 2nd and 3rd weeks of the season. So that's super inconvenient, but life is a miracle and then we move on. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have, my regular clientele in my office. It's not just Bronco players. So like, if you're watching this, you're like, man, I'd like to see this guy, but he only works on Broncos. That's not true. Bronco players make up like 2% of my actual clientele. I work on normal people too. Don't worry about it. So, I work Monday through Friday, my regular hours. We usually block off certain times. So we'll find out when their off days are, and we'll all be available in the office for them. I do have house calls. I have like maybe 5 or 6 guys pretty consistently in the rotation that I'll do house calls for. And then this year, we'll be traveling again. The first 2 weeks are going to be a little bit dicey because my wife is due September 22nd. That Jags game is on the 19th, and that's on the East Coast. So, I'm not really sure what to do. So I booked my flight to New York. So I don't know if I'm going to have to cancel that, only time will tell. But I fly independently. I have a handful of the guys who, they pay me to fly. So like I actually pay out of pocket to fly and to get my hotel just so I get those points because, those points are precious. And then I just divide up the cost depending on how many people that I see and, go from there. So all of that tied into also having a newborn. I might not sleep until February, so we'll see how.
So where's the pool that we get into for the baby name? Because I know you're keeping it. It's going to be a boy. So we're.
Are you wanting to do a poll? It's Benjamin Albright Vetanze. Okay.
Dude, there's got to be a Mundungus in there somewhere. Like my wife.
I was gonna say you have one of the best names I've ever heard.
Peyton
My
or
wife
LA?
is-
for sure.
My wife is due on September 21st, and
No kidding.
I was pushing so bad for like Mundungus or Hermione or Rod or something, and she's like, "I will literally divorce you." Try to put that on
They
there.
had like J.K. Rowling had to make Mundungus like the crappiest character in all of the books, right? It's like he
Right.
wasn't a bad guy. He was just an
A
idiot.
jerk.
Yeah, he was just a dick for no reason.
That's why I'm Mundungus.
And you're just over here like,
I'm
what
a
the
dick
hell,
for no
JK?
reason.
It's exactly.
This is a stupid question, but there's
This
an
is
actual
life, mirroring
Mundungus
a
in the
reality.
Harry Potter series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mundungus Fletcher.
Oh, yeah,
He's the guy that
dude.
digs the.
I've never seen the movie, so
yeah, no,
Dude,
like
that movie would have been 3 books shorter if it wasn't for that jerk.
I always figured that Mundungus just got his name from some alphabet soup or something. You know?
No. So like we were getting ready, like we hadn't even decided to do the podcast yet. We were just watching Broncos stuff online, and I was like, okay, I don't want people to know what my actual name is. Well, until I met these 3 and they told everybody. So I was like, I'm gonna make it up. So I was like, I went onto Google, it was like wizard name creator. And it was like, my initials are MC. Mundungus Creevy. Cool. I'm going with that one.
Nice.
And that's how that legend was born.
And that's how the legend was born.
Wait, so that's not your real name?
Yeah, it is.
I'm all confused.
Show him your state ID.
I've got 2 questions before we got to head out. One, what do you think at the end of the season the record is going to be for the Broncos?
17-0.
Nice.
No, I'm like I think 11-6 is 11-6, 12-5. I think is their ceiling. I think if Locke does take that next step and we see like Josh Allen type growth, or even like just below that, like if he cements himself as a top 15 to 12 quarterback, I think that's what we're looking at. If Drew Lock stays the same, I think that we're going to be floating. I know we can't technically be 500 now, but I think we'll be right around that 500 area. And I think with Teddy, you're probably looking at like a 9-10 win season at the max. But you know what? I like to stay positive, man, and I like to put positivity out into the universe. So I'm saying 12-5, and I think that we make the playoffs as a wild card, and then we obviously win the Super Bowl. And I don't think that that's being crazy at all.
I don't think so.
I don't think it's being overly optimistic. I'm not drinking the orange Kool-Aid, but this is the greatest team that I've ever seen, and I love them.
See, Landon's got my back. Mom said that's never going to happen. See?
That's Mike's son.
That's my oldest. The one that's on the 21st, that'll be number 6. If you want a couple, I got some extra to spare.
You're a freaking rabbit, dog.
Hey, I keep telling people, like, I only tried for 2. I don't know where the other 4 came from.
You just be
As
looking
Landon
at her, and
gets
she's
mine.
like, "Oh,
Hello.
here we go."
Landon, earmuffs.
It was
So
immaculate conception. We all
That's
know
right.
that.
the very
You were just
last
up here like this.
Yep.
yeah, that's what I got the wand back behind me for.
Wand?
Yeah, we don't want to see your wand, okay?
Oh, wand.
Jesus.
Got it.
Oh God. So
Impregnatus totalicus.
So the very last question I have for you is probably the best question on the podcast of all time.
Have you ever met John Elway?
No, that's not the question. The question is
Yeah, he's kind of a dick.
a T-Rex sized chicken
Oh my god.
or 100 chicken sized T-Rexes.
Listen, man. Okay, am I fighting with my hands or do I get a weapon?
It doesn't matter.
It kind of matters.
Whatever
Your
is
choice.
available.
Your choice.
Your choice.
If
They
I
showed up at
have,
your door.
if I'm just with my hands, then I have to take the chicken sized T-Rexes because I feel like if you got a chicken sized T-Rex chicken size T-Rex sized chicken.
Yeah,
Thank you. Oh my
T-Rex
gosh,
sized
okay.
chicken.
So a big ass chicken, right, coming at you. If you don't have something to like, what are you gonna do? Like punch its leg? That's not gonna do anything. That thing will just, and then you're dead. Like, you're pecked to death. So even like at least if I'm fighting like all these tiny little T-Rexes, like I got like an extra 5 more minutes to live, and you just be kicking the things. It's not gonna be easy.
Mhm.
You know, like they're still relatively fast, but then they still got the little arms, so it's not like they can grab you You know, and like they got the jaws, but then their mouths are going to be a lot smaller. So you'd be like punching down and kicking. Like neither situation is good, but definitely give me the tiny T-Rex is 100%. One big ass chicken, you dead, easy.
Goodbye.
All right.
Well,
and a straw has 2 holes.
Right? Oh, I was like, so they had that other question about what player would you not want dating your sister? And like everybody was like Shelby. Shelby's like, what did I do?
Shelby, that is so true. He's like, he's got 4 kids. That's exactly who you want dating. He's a family man.
But he kept walking back in, going, I don't understand this.
I get it.
I got a wife.
That's why I love Shelby, man. Like his comedic timing, like he could do comedy if he wanted to. Like the guy is hysterical.
What's the funniest Shelby story that you can share?
It's not even really a story, man. It's just like just the way that he is. He's just really funny. Like you kind of saw when they did when they mic'd him up and Josh Allen was checking. He's like, stop lying. You're not checking anything. Just like that's just like his personality. It's like he'll never be the guy that gets into fights at camp because he's just too goofy. And he's the guy that everybody loves because he's just hilarious, just nonstop.
Well, he did have that slight outburst with what's his name last season.
That was actually that was like more of a loving thing.
Yeah, they kissed and made up afterwards, but it was still good to see.
He said it was. He said that he was joking around. And then Chubb got mad, and then he kept joking around, and he was Chubb, right? And then Chubb got mad.
Chubb, yeah.
And then like Shelby just kind of snapped him, like told him to like shut up because he was joking, and then they were fine.
I know I don't mean to prolong your visit. Thank you so much for being here, but have you seen camaraderie with any other team like you've seen with this group? They really look to like they enjoy each other and enjoy spending time alone. As a group together.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I think it's good that it's brought up to take it one step further. I think the problem in the past, the teams that I've been around kind of since the Super Bowl, they seem to have camaraderie, but there's a disconnect. In the past, there was a disconnect between the veterans and the young guys. You know, for the 2 or 3 seasons following the Super Bowl, it was the guys that won a Super Bowl and then the guys that weren't here for it. And then there was just like this weird disconnect. And it was like, you know, the guys that hadn't won the Super Bowl, they're like, man, they think that they're better than everybody. They're entitled. And then the guys that have won the Super Bowl, like, man, they don't know what it takes. They're not taking it seriously enough. And there was just this gap that they didn't quite have. Now, I would say like the last year or two, there was an issue where it's almost like offense versus defense, and that's part of the problem that's put in place by Fangio. Fangio's a defensive coach. He favors the defense. I think that's very obvious given the amount of time that he spends with the defense. Like, he doesn't know who Royce Freeman is. He's obviously not very involved in the offense. But I see that like slowly starting to break down. I know for a fact, like a lot of the position groups once a week will meet up. Like they'll do like a DB dinner, and you know, like a guy like Kareem will treat everybody, or the offensive line will have dinner, and one of the guys will host everybody at their house. But what I'm starting to see now, from my perspective, is we're starting to see offense and defensive guys melding. They're all kind of coming together, and there is more camaraderie. And I honestly think it's because they genuinely believe that they're a good team. I think that they thought last year was a wash because they lost their best offensive and best defensive player pretty much for the entire season. They were riddled with injuries, and it was a weird COVID year. So they scrapped it, and they kind of came together over that, and they kind of built this band of brothers sort of feeling that they have with one another. So I've definitely noticed that they all seem a lot closer and that they're a lot tighter than I've seen with teams in the past. I mean, I could have told you guys years ago, like those years following the Super Bowl, there was such a massive disconnect. I could have told you those teams weren't going to win because they were never on the same page.
Yeah.
No. Mr. Orange jumping in here too. Not that one. That one. You never seen a T-Rex, could be a real killer.
You ever seen a T-Rex?
Jurassic Park
in a museum.
We're literally talking about a hypothetical where it's not even a T-Rex. It's a T-Rex the size of a chicken, man. Like, just play along, dude.
Brandon Gonzalez, a name I haven't seen before, talking about
What's
the competition between the quarterback.
My salute.
But he also brings up Aaron Rodgers. Unless we get that number 12 MVP. Any shot that Aaron Rodgers comes to the Broncos, or do you think it's back to the Packers, or do you think it's he takes a year off?
I think that he's made it very clear it's not back to the Packers. And the way that I see it, it's interesting with Aaron Rodgers, man. If he was like this like really fierce competitor like how Tom Brady is, I don't think that he's sitting out. I think that he's just going to bite the bullet, and he's like, you know what, I'm not going to sign an extension, but I want to play. I want to be the best. I want to compete. This is what I want to do, and he would just play. Aaron Rodgers is just an aloof, chill dude who seems perfectly fine with never playing another down. Super Bowl MVP, multiple MVPs. He's a Hall of Famer. He could never play another down, and he's a Hall of Famer. So maybe his perspective is, I've done it all. I will have accomplished everything that I ever could want to in the realm of football. I'm good without playing. So I honestly, it's clearly not about the money. They were going to make him the highest paid NFL player in the entire league. If it was relatively about money, he'd be back there. And even if it was like a little bit about money, but mostly about other stuff, that much of it, I'd be like, I'll play anywhere. I'll do anything. But then he also doesn't seem like that kind of guy. And keep in mind how much money he's made just from the advertisements he's done with State Farm. Like, he's made more money through State Farm than I think most athletes or most football players will make in their career of football. So if he doesn't care about the money and he just wants out, then the Packers have two choices. They acquiesce to his request and they just say, fine, we might as well get something out of this. And they have a really high price tag and they start answering calls. Or he sits out, they roll with Jordan Love and Blake Bortles. And then they just see what happens. And then eventually, like, if he sits out and he doesn't play, then they lose Aaron Rodgers and they lose out on multiple first round picks and probably multiple position players. So it all comes down to the Packers, like, who's going to break first? Because everything that you're throwing at Aaron, that dude has not blinked, and you might as well get something for him. But I'm not in charge of the Packers. So and I would say there's like a 30% chance, because if they do end up deciding to trade him, and I know he doesn't have a no trade clause, but he could easily say to a team, like, they're not going to trade him to a crappy team, because he would just tell them, like, well, I don't want to play for you either, so don't trade for me, because then you'll be in the same position that they're in. From what I've heard, so Garrett is very good friends with Blake Bortles, and obviously Bortles was out in Green Bay. Garrett said that Blake told him that Aaron really wants to be in Denver. Now, that's obviously hearsay, that's speculation. And I take a lot of what Garrett says with a grain of salt, because he's goofy. He might have just been goofing around and trying to, he might have been just trying to get me, because that's how he is. Mm-hmm. But if there's any credence to that, it's like, yeah, look at this team. Like, why wouldn't he want to come here? We all know his fiance lives here. Yep. So I think if Green Bay ends up deciding that they want to trade him, you might as well start buying number 12 jerseys. But it's all about Green Bay. Everybody talking about whether or not they should do it. Like, should the Broncos trade for him? You trade for him. Unequivocally, and you don't think twice about it. It's the biggest no-brainer since you signed Peyton Manning over Tim Tebow. But if you remember, there were still people that wanted Tim Tebow. Yep. Not every fan is going to be smart, and that's okay.
And at what point does Aaron actually say exactly what he wants? Because he has danced around.
He might not. He might look how Aaron Rodgers is. Like, look at his personality.
Unbelievable.
I don't really think he cares that much. He's like, you're either going to trade me, or I'm just going to host Jeopardy. I don't think he cares. And I don't think he's going to tell us, because he's not emotionally invested in it. He's just going to let the cards fall. He's telling Green Bay, like, I'm not playing for you. Mm-hmm. So it's up to you.
And that $35 million, if he holds out, like, what's that to Aaron Rodgers? Like, you don't think he can get that quick with?
I'm pretty sure State Farm would be like, we got you, buddy. You know how many times he's done this? You realize how much money he's made State Farm by doing this? Yeah. He's going to be fine. Yeah, money's not an issue.
Well, like I said it last week, like, I think if anything is going to happen on the Aaron Rodgers front, it's probably going to be closer to the trade deadline at this point. Just because then the Packers have more of an idea of, these are the teams he can go to. This is what we'll get for him. Now we can trade him.
I mean, I don't think that they're in any rush. You would think that if they're going to trade for a quarterback, so let's say they trade him to Denver, it would make sense for them to want Teddy, just because Teddy's the veteran. They already have a young guy that they're invested in. That's why I don't think that they would be interested in Locke unless they're really high on Drew Lock. But all signs would point to Teddy being traded. So then if you are making that trade and you're bringing in a veteran quarterback, you would want to give him a little bit of time to, develop develop and gel with that offense, to learn the offense. I mean, the longer that they wait, like if, let's say they bring him in midway through training camp, Teddy's not going to be the starter. Whereas if they were to make that trade like next week, Teddy starts in the season. So there is a little bit of a clock on it. And I don't know if the Packers are holding out for a miracle, or that like Aaron Rodgers wakes up with a brain aneurysm and completely forgets everything that he's been saying for the last couple months. But we'll see.
Well, we're about out of time. We got a couple of comments here, Johnny. Amazing show, you guys.
Agreed.
Absolutely, Johnny. Best guest ever.
Best guest ever.
Now, listen.
That's just because you guys haven't had it right yet.
Dude, we got so like we're gonna put Lindsay. I'm gonna call her Beep Out because I think it be about it. Sounds about right. So Lindsay,
Lindsay got to meet Garrett and Calvin because she wore my hoodie to their gym. She had messaged me and she's like, "Hey, I work out at the same gym as Garrett and Calvin. Like, I really want to go up to them and like introduce myself, but I'm scared." I was like, "You got my hoodie. Wear it to the gym. They'll see it and they will come to you." And then the next day, "Oh my God, I met Garrett. I met Garrett and Calvin. That was so cool." Like,
she was so fun, by the way. Like,
she's awesome. I got to meet her in person. She's really cool.
Yeah.
She knows her stuff too. She's smart.
No doubt.
She writes really good articles.
I'm not gonna say best guest ever because you want to be democratic with everything, but
amazing.
Bob Skinner, he should have a show. The best. You should have your own show.
I used to.
Well,
with Ben.
If anyone's interested, I posted a fun little thread today on my Twitter timeline that kind of gave everyone like a background. A lot of people think that I am just like a fan. I mean, I am just a fan, but I actually have a background in this. Like, I did a blog and podcast. I was about 5 years too early on the podcasting scene and gave it up. Had a radio show with Albright, but yeah, I told my whole story on there. I don't know if anyone would be interested in it. It's just kind of silly, but it's fun little stuff. And there's little cameos from people that you might have heard of like just how Ben got his start. Really, if it wasn't for me, you never would have heard of Ben Albright.
Yep.
We have Ryan on next week, actually.
I will be on with Ryan tomorrow, actually, on Broncos Country Tonight, filling in for Ben. That was part of the reason I posted the thing, because everything came full circle, and Ben was my co-host, and then I've co-hosted with Ben before, and now I'm jumping on with Ryan. It took me a year and a half to gain Ryan's trust, so I really got to bring my A game tomorrow.
Your last, by the way, your last appearance when you were filling in for Ryan with Ben, and you were there for the entire 3 hours. It was 2 because the stupid Rockies went into that's right. That's right. That was an amazing show.
An extra hour of my crap.
If people can dig that out, the stories again and your insights about draft night and getting tipped off on some of the picks during the draft were, just fantastic.
Man,
it was so cool.
Fun. It's fun for sure.
Oh,
yeah, that was a fun awkward silence. We had 5 guys and 5 seconds of silence. That was weird.
I was just saying, like, I was reading something else. It's like, oh, they're done.
I thought the boss was going to segue. That's why I didn't say anything.
Well, that's what I was working on, because we are about out of time. And so we do want to thank Mario for joining us tonight. It's been super fun.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. I had a really good time. I love doing this stuff, man.
The stories you're able to tell are amazing. I love it. So
we'll anytime you guys want more, like I'll dig up some more stories. Like, we only have so much time, but yeah, we can definitely tell more next time. I got more DT stories, more Garrett stories, Justin stories, you name it. Rick Upchurch stories, anything you want, man.
Thanks again, and thanks again for helping me out personally. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
So, how do you want people to get a hold of you? Where do you want them to get a hold of you? Where's the business at? Where do you want them to go for that? Just any way we can get a hold of you.
I would tell people to go follow me on Twitter, but if they're about to add a dislike button, I tweeted this out. I don't think I can take dislikes, man. Like, my ego is fragile.
Dislike block.
I guess that will be an instant block. If the first dislike I get, I'm like, nope, you're done. You don't get any of my tweets. But if you are so inclined, follow me at Mile High Mario. I used to be way more savage than I am. I'm about to be a dad, so I'm trying to be nicer to people in general, but every once in a while I'll snap on somebody, and apparently it's very entertaining. But for the most part, much better person now, just a nice, calm dude that's just trying to give you information. If you want any other information, you can go to VetanzeTherapy.com or OmniChiropracticClinic.com. If you want to schedule an appointment with me, I am not going to give out my phone number, but you can go ahead and slide into my DMs and I will get you scheduled. In fact, I will do this. Everybody who listened to this show, if you mention it and you come see me and you mention it, I'll give you half off a session.
Yeah.
Woo!
Damn.
And I'm going to be eating ramen next week. Let's go.
Now,
I got the tank tops available.
No, unfortunately, they're not. I might do another round. You know, they weren't as popular as I thought. Maybe I picked the wrong color scheme, but I wanted to do something with breast cancer awareness.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also an algorithm problem because it seemed like as soon as the fundraiser was over, I had like 8 people ask me if they could get it or if it was available and that they hadn't seen it. So freaking Twitter, man, all of these Russian hackers really, really cramping my style. But I will be doing another fundraiser probably around the beginning of the season. And so, yeah, just keep your eyes out for that. I don't know, man. The only problem is tank top weather is almost over.
I've been doing my push-ups for when mine arrives. So I gotta get,
there you go. No push-ups. No push-ups, Glenn. We do bicep curls here.
Okay. I know you're big on the biceps.
Else. You're just curling.
I was gonna say like I know that our podcast is kind of on the small side, but we do get like 600-700 views a podcast, so be careful about offering too much because you're gonna have 700 people come flooding in there. Like, hey,
approach. If they want to come in and I fix them like I did with Glenn, then they'll keep coming back, and it's all about getting people in the door. So if I have to give you a discount to get you in my door, that's fine. How about you don't even need to pay anything. I won't work on you. Like, let's not go crazy. But if you just want to come in my office and there's like, look at my wall, that's fine. If you want to come in and maybe you meet somebody famous, like maybe you run into Von Miller, maybe you run into Justin Simmons, maybe you get to meet Garrett Bowles. I don't know. It might happen.
That's
Bree,
not.
In fact, Bree, who was messaging, Bree, who was commenting earlier, she got to meet and take a picture with Philip Lindsay the other day. You know, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I'm saying it's happened.
That's not stalkerish at all.
Dude, just come in my office, just chill.
Not
come
at
in
all.
there, sit down. My front desk staff will be like, "Who are you here to see?" Nobody.
Just the wall.
No, I'm not here to see anybody. Yeah. I've heard of Mario. But I'm just chilling.
I brought my own chair.
We're still spaced out from COVID. We haven't really put everything back the way it's supposed to be. So bring your own chair.
Well, we also want to thank every single person that was in the chat today. And this is the first technically giveaway that's on the podcast.
Yeah. Make sure you mention MHRT, folks.
MHRT. And a reminder that we are still on that quest for 1,000, and the best way to support the channel is to help us reach that 1,000. So make sure you slap that thumbs up button, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment, and share so that you can know when we go live, anytime we post amazing content on our pages, and so that other Broncos fans out there in Broncos country can know that we are here. Now, we also have 2 other shows. Make sure that you're tuning in at 6543 on Sundays for the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast with Johnny and Isaiah. They were going to have Cameron Parker on. What are you doing?
Oh, we're not done?
No. They were going to have Cameron Parker on, but he got moved to the first. So make sure you tune in on that. And on Tuesdays for Broncos Talk at 7654 with a 6'10" Rich and Johnny.
I love it.
With that, we're going to head out. We love you all. Have a great weekend. But there's one thing that we have to do. It's called the Mile High Five. Mario, have you ever heard of it? It was that thing at the very beginning where they clapped over the head. So what we're saying is if they come into your place of business and do the Mile High Five, even bigger discount.
That 5% just became 10%. Folks.
Man is becoming a first-time father. Come on.
Instead of that, I'll give you a pen or something.
Oh
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Johnny started the Mile High Five, and his goal is to get it over the loudspeakers in Empower and have the fans do the mile high five.
Oh, I like
Which I think is a pretty cool goal. So we've had
Agreed.
every other guest do it. So now it's your turn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to yell mile high five. Your hands are going to be out to your side. And then I'm going to yell it, and you're going to clap over your head.
I have rotator cuff injury.
Stop it, Boggins. We'll go see Mario. He'll help you out.
Yeah, that's right. You get half off and more if you do the mile high five, apparently.
And you get a pen.
and a pen.
Okay, so here we go. Everybody ready? Mile high five.
Woo!
Done. Got it.
Let's go, baby.
All right, we will see you guys on Sunday. And remember, training camp starts next week. Very exciting. See you guys.